So for the purpose of this interview, please introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
My name is Samuel Baddoo. I'm originally from Ghana. I live in the States now. And I'm CEO and founder of a company called Fleri. Fleri helps immigrants living in the diaspora to provide quality healthcare to their families living back home. The way we do this is by operating a cross-border health insurance marketplace that allows, Africans in the diaspora to compare and buy health insurance for their families back home.
Well, I think on the topic of health insurance, given your expertise, sort of for anyone watching that is unsure as to what that looks like in the context of Africa, sort of what is health insurance and what kind of variants are out there for those back home?
So health insurance is simply a finance mechanism that allows you to pay for access to healthcare or pay for healthcare access.
Right.
Now, in recent days, we have variants moving from, self-insurance, right, where people are just paying out of pocket, to microinsurance, which provides reimbursement for a set event, like going to the hospital. Every time you go to the hospital, so long as you provide the relevant documents, you get a certain amount reimbursed to you. And then there's comprehensive medical insurance, right, which deals with a provider network, deals also with set benefits and limits. And most importantly, it matches up premiums that are paid over a consistent period to benefits that you get when it comes to medical care, right? And this is going to take care of anything from surgery, laboratories, tests, consultations. So it really varies in terms of the different solutions that are available and the different cost implications of those.
Right, I think that was a great sort of introduction into health insurance and sort of looking at statistics. I've read that in most African countries, less than 2% of the population actually have health insurance. So kind of let's get into that. Why is that the case? And how does Fleri sort of aim to, fix that problem?
That's a bit right. And I don't think we have all the perfect answers, but here's the reality. Insurance penetration itself is low in Africa, right? Hovering around 3%. And this is composite. We're talking about general insurance, life, and then non-life. Health insurance penetration itself is even worse, right? And the primary reason for this is a lack of disposable income. So affordability has always been a problem on the continent, right? People have a huge hierarchy of needs. And if you think of it, the very idea of insurance, which requires you to put aside a certain amount, right, every month, every quarter, every year, right, to be able to cover a deferred risk, right? The risk of getting sick, the risk of losing your home, the risk of getting into an accident. That seems quite far away for the average African, right, compared to real things that they deal with on a daily basis, like how do I buy food for myself, my family, right? How do I ensure that I have gas in my car? How do I pay for my kids' school fees, right? So once you start looking at all of these different needs that people really have, you start to understand how much or how low things like insurance are going to rank on that hierarchy of needs, right? And this is traditionally been, the biggest part of it. And I guess where Fleri comes in is in addressing that affordability problem, right? Fleri allows people to get the health care that they need via health insurance without passing on the burden of affordability, right?
Mm,
And so for us, it's about how do we look at the entire ecosystem, right? And look at the opportunity to provide the healthcare, but at the same time engage another entity or another party, which in this case is the diasporan relative, who already is spending, $200-300 every month, a couple of months, supporting this person living on the continent, right?
right.
Yes. And so by introducing that new person into this equation, we have a
Mm,
three-way relationship. We have a three-way relationship that allows us to connect, these two parties, resulting in a benefit for the end beneficiary, who's on the ground, and then provides peace of mind and financial security for the person who lives in the diaspora.
wow. I think that's great. And I particularly, I guess, bringing in that third party into the equation who essentially has the knowledge and understanding of why this is important and able to kind of flip the script in a sense, because rather than just sending them, like you said, $300 to $500 a month for their living costs or their expenses, you're also factoring the costs of, hey, medical bills may inevitably arise, and this also does factor or cater to that rather. So talk me through the process. So I'm a prospective customer in the diaspora. So maybe both my parents live in, I don't know, in the north in Ghana somewhere, and I'm looking to buy a insurance product from yourself. What does that process look like, and how I guess well informed is that diasporan relative in that whole process to the end customer, i.e. my parents in the north of Ghana?
All right, good use case. So in this case, it starts off first, you go into the website, right?
Right.
Um, you'll get an understanding for the different plans that are available on the website, right? And then getting that in, um, filling out a form, providing the basic information. Where are your parents located? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what age are they? Whether it's one person you're trying to cover or two people, right? Once you fill out this form, that comes to us, we follow up with a discovery call to really understand what's going on in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and why you're looking for, this product. From that standpoint, once we understand that, we're able to do a policy review to go through the different plans and the insurance companies that we work with, these carriers, right? Once we settle on the right policy for this right use case, it allows us to be able to, one, determine what pre-existing conditions and what benefits are needed, what your
Mm-hmm.
budget is, right? And where is this coverage going to be provided? With
Right.
this in mind, we select a policy to go forward with. That policy is going to go into underwriting, but we also have a team in Ghana that does verifications. So they're going to talk to your parents in the north or
Mm-hmm.
wherever they are, um, make sure that the responses that you provided match up, or if there's any updated information, they get that from your
Mm.
parents directly, right? Once that verification is done, the policy goes into underwriting, takes a maximum of 7 days. Once it's underwritten, we issue out the policy documents and the ID card. And then you on this side will get to know, what is their policy details, their policy ID number, and all of that. We do the delivery as well. So wherever they are in Ghana or Nigeria, we're going to send them these details. And with that, they'll be able to go to any hospital um, within the network of the provider that they have, right? So this is what it looks like from you coming onto the website and then
Mm.
ending up with a relative or a family member having insurance, right, that they can use.
Amazing, amazing. I think the process is very simple, very straightforward, and it looks like the relevant relatives and the individual raising the request for insurance is well informed at every step of the way. So right now, starting with Ghana, is the vision to kind of take over the whole of Africa with Fleri? Tell me.
All right, so it sounds really, really huge when you say it like that. Um, Yes. So obviously Ghana as a pilot is, where I was born.
Of course.
It makes sense to start in a much smaller place. But the next step is to be able to go to different African countries, and then also link with the corresponding diaspora and community for those
Amazing.
countries, right? So we have a lot of work to do in the next year, expanding just in the Ghanaian diaspora. Um, we also have a pilot coming that's going to see us going to the next bigger African country that we're working with, which will offer other opportunities there. There's also an opportunity for us to bring on more innovative products uh, that are going to serve those purposes. For instance, if you think of the typical African immigrant, there are a number of relationships or a number of expenses that really become a burden for us, right? You can
Right.
think of
Yeah.
healthcare and health emergencies. Uh, the other one is traveling back home continuously, right? Every couple of years or every year. And then the third one that's probably the biggest, especially for West Africans, is funerals, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
my grandmother passed away earlier this year. We spent about $18,000 on the funeral. Like,
Wow.
if you think about the fact that it was locked down and nobody was traveling back, and you had to send money through Western Union,
Yeah.
imagine how much in fees we ended up paying. So
Mm.
when you think of it, companies in these countries have been doing a really good job over the last 10, 15 years developing um, life insurance products, um, end of life, funeral benefit products, right? That are much better positioned to deal with the inevitable in this way. And
Yeah.
our goal is to be able to help immigrants gain better financial freedom or financial wellness by having a much more efficient way to managing the support that they give back home, right? So we're going to see a lot of product innovation in terms of, life, health, and then travel policies. Um, but we're also going to see growth in terms of the number of diasporan communities that would be able to benefit from this, right? So that's what we're really focused on right now.
Definitely. I think the journey or the trajectory potentially is very, very exciting. I think the whole fintech, insurtech space is very, very vibrant and thriving. And I think the example that you gave, your personal example, your personal experience, was a very relatable example for many that are potentially watching that have been in similar unfortunate situations and had to spend X amount of money that was inevitably quite a lot. And obviously in the context of COVID wasn't ideal, or you weren't really able to foresee or plan for that. But it just shows the need for insurance policies in every context, as you said, general, life, non-life also. So I guess now moving into more about you and I guess your journey as an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship is not easy. I think stepping out in faith and doing something for yourself, especially solving such a big, big problem on such a huge, huge continent, is not easy. So talk us through maybe one or two examples or struggles, should I say, that you have experienced in your journey as an entrepreneur, and how have you overcome them, or how are you still overcoming them?
I think it's always definitely how am I still dealing with these. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if we've overcome them yet.
Sure.
Um, I think one of the ways, the I'll start with the struggles. One, believing in yourself, right?
Right.
That's the first one, because you're seeing something that nobody else sees.
Right.
Whether you like it or not, nobody's really gonna be able to see what you see quite the way you see it, right? You're gonna be able to sell people on your vision, get people to join you, but in your mind's eye, you're always seeing this finished world, this world that exists that isn't quite here yet, right?
Right.
And consistently trying to pull everybody towards it, um, while pulling your own self along is a big struggle. Staying motivated, and I guess the way I deal with it, or the way I try to overcome this, is constantly leaning on my other founder friends. So
Mm.
these struggles are not unique. There are a lot
Yeah.
of people who are going through them, uh,
Mm-hmm.
building different products and being able to support them, right, as they support you. It can
Right.
be very, very troubling because whether voluntarily or involuntarily, we're pulling all of these people around, right?
Mm.
Family, kids, there's all of that, right? You want to be able to go out with your friends,
Yeah.
you're not able to, right? Because you have this, issue that you have to deal with. And the reality is nothing is really going to get done unless you're doing it,
Of
right?
course.
Until you get to a certain point. That's a big thing.
Mm.
And it's not easy to go through that. So um, the other one is constantly keeping a growth mindset. We don't know
Mm.
it all. I certainly don't know it all. Always learning.
Right.
And I think that gives you a certain level of humility to know that
Mm-hmm.
everyone that you talk to, whether it's customers, vendors, partners, you're constantly learning. And every day is a new opportunity to address a new problem,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
You never quite finish addressing anything. You win here, there's something else that's going to break. Um, so that entrepreneurial journey for me is one that I actively chose.
Mm.
I relished the opportunity to be able to do it. I think creating something that did not exist is quite fascinating, right?
Of
To
course. Yeah.
but it's not easy doing it.
Of course, no, definitely. I think most entrepreneurs will definitely be able to relate, but I think it's a little bit more amplified where you're working kind of on the continent of Africa, where
Mhm.
maybe systems and processes don't actually
Mm.
exist as of yet, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
especially in comparison to what you may be used to for
yeah.
yourself anyway in the States. So how have you navigated that space, sort of being an entrepreneur, being a founder? Going through all of these issues yourself as a founder, but then applying that to the context of Africa. Because things can be slower in Ghana, right, than in the
Good
States.
question.
So
I'm glad that you have the context because you're Ghanaian, you travel to the continent a lot. Um, I think one of the things that I've definitely come to appreciate is it's people that make a difference.
mm-hmm.
Like over here, we think about processes and tools, and then
Mm,
people, right, all complement. Um, on the continent, it's more people, and then the
mm,
processes and tools follow, right? Which means that you're gonna have to get very, very good at building relationships,
right.
because relationships move everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's understanding how people are different. We don't share the same context or background, but it doesn't mean that they're any less valuable, right?
Mm,
Just because things aren't efficient doesn't mean that they aren't useful or
mm,
valuable, right? And sometimes it's really hard to understand the difference. So you
mm-hmm.
might want something to be done a certain way. And so we get caught up on how we want it to be done versus does it get done, right? And that's a shift in mindset that, working on the continent, you kind of have to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, it's also knowing that, you know, with time, those things will change. And that in itself is the opportunity,
Mm,
right? Um, I could give you an example. APIs are relatively new on the continent,
mm,
right? We've seen it a lot more when it comes to fintech, especially in
mm-hmm.
Nigeria, right? But companies leaning on APIs to be able to develop integrations or work with other entities is not something that is well understood,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we had that shock when we realized that it was going to be a hard sell trying to get companies to really adapt to that mentality of openly sharing or sharing in a secure way, but that leads to greater efficiency.
Right.
But once we start working and showing the advantages, it becomes easier to get buy-in, right? And so
Mm,
that patience for people to realize and understand and catch up is really needed. I think there's also a level of humility that we need to use to approach working on the continent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People aren't stupid, right?
Right.
It's really, really important.
Yeah.
You can either take this, complaining mentality and
Mm.
complain about everything, or you
Mm-hmm.
realize that they have their own advantages on the ground. Like we got things done that would probably take forever if we did them our way, right? And maintaining that
Wow.
flexibility and mindset, right, when you work with people, would help you get the best of them. Um,
Mm.
what a dinner or people don't do coffee, they do like a night out.
Yeah,
What that is going to do for you, uh,
exactly.
might not be able to do in a month of sending wonderful, well typed letters, right, or emails or
Mm.
phone calls, because it just doesn't work that way, right? So understanding the nuances of doing business on the continent has really helped. And I started out like in Ghana. I had 3 companies in Ghana before I moved to the States, and so that kind of helps having that context.
Definitely. I think what you just said is key, having that context of the country in which you are looking to set up a business or looking to work in is very, very important. And I think universally what you said about people is incredibly key. In the West, we are so fast paced. And of course, relationship is currency here, but I think it's a different type of currency in Africa. And relationship management is genuinely key. And I think authenticity underpins all of that. If you are genuine, if you are authentic, and you are looking to do things, and be understanding of the context you are working in, it definitely will kind of step you in the right direction for success in one way or another.
Mhm.
So I guess now moving on to the diaspora. So I think diaspora engagement across
Yeah.
Africa has been a topical issue over the last few years, especially looking back, especially being Ghanaian, at the year of return and the influx of diasporans and Black people across the world sort of flooding in on the capital. So what are your thoughts on diasporan engagement, and what advice maybe would you give to a diasporan that was looking to either move back to Africa? I guess you can only really talk about Ghana, move back to Ghana, or set up a business in Ghana, or actually work in Ghana. So that kind of those 3 contexts, what are your advice for those watching?
Hmm. So one, I think it's very important, and some people maintain a different opinion about this. I think as many people in the diaspora that get a chance to go back, um, we should always be happy about that, always excited about that.
Of
I
course.
hear people talking about, oh, and they're everywhere. Well,
Mm-hmm.
yes, they should be everywhere, right? Because um, there's an amount of gain, uh,
Mm-hmm.
an amount of expertise that we get from getting people who look like you to come back,
That's right.
right? We have millions of Chinese people running around in Africa, and there's nothing wrong with that,
Mm.
right? So why would we not want millions more Black people like us going back to the continent? Because guess what? Um, I'm really happy when I see Black people succeed, regardless of where it is, right? Because not just in what they're doing, but it's also in the example that they set to generations after that. If you
Exactly.
live in an African country where the only people who are doing well look like Lebanese or Chinese or Indian, what does that say to the person who's growing up in Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, there's more than enough opportunity for every person in the diaspora um, to get into on the continent. Two, from the perspective of what diasporans should look out for, I think going in fully aware that you don't know everything, or probably that you know very little, is really important,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so test your waters, just like the way you do for everything else.
Yeah.
Go visit,
Mm.
go visit, um, and then set out and plan it. Go visit, make some friends, start building relationships. Take
Mm-hmm.
stock and account of your own capabilities. If you see an opportunity where you think you can have an influence, start to think about it strategically. Who do I need to connect to? Who do I need
Mm.
to know? How do I add value? Right? Um, Recently, there's been opportunities to be an entrepreneur in residence at either MEST or ALA. those opportunities are really great, right? They offer you a safety net to be able to immerse yourself in the growing entrepreneurial, you know, mindset of Africans,
Mm.
right? While learning from those peers as well, right? And I think those are very, very important things. And then finally, you know, after you've done the research, after you've visited a couple of times, after you've laid out a plan,
Mm.
take note of the fact that anything happens, right?
Right.
A lot of people
Yeah.
travel. Like I went back a few weeks ago, right? And there was an Italian, you know, who traveled. Unfortunately, got into an accident and died. Right?
Wow.
There are a lot of things that happen, and so having insurance is really important.
Mm.
Right? You could get sick from a whole number of things,
Mm.
from you not being used to the food, um, a lot of things, right? So having, you know, an emergency repatriation plan, getting travel insurance is really important. A lot of people do it and just don't think about it, right?
Mm.
Yeah, because the chances are you probably nothing is going to happen to you, but you just might
Exactly.
end up spending, you know, your vacation money in the hospital, right?
Mm.
That's just sad.
Mm.
Right. So I think, you know, taking stock of what you want to do and then preparing for it is really, really important. But most of all, connect and network. Um, I'm always happy to talk to people. I think there are lots of people who are always happy to network and then help out anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that's very, very, very key. So I guess now moving on to my final question. What excites you the most about the development of the continent? Let's say over the next decade, you know, people have coined the next 2020s to be the roaring 20s. Again, I'm not too sure if I agree with that, but what excites you the most about the decade for or the development of the continent, should I say, over the next decade?
Really, really interesting. So I grew up in Ghana, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard Vision 2020, right?
Right.
So agenda by the NDC
Mm.
and former President Jerry John Rawlings. Um, but we did live to get to Vision 2020, and it was really interesting that he ended up dying in 2020.
Right.
But this year has been a reset.
Mm-hmm.
What makes me excited about, you know, continental development is this new phase of awareness that we're experiencing, and a whole lot of things that are aligning themselves to create opportunity.
Mm.
More Africans want to travel within Africa. And I think that's a trend that's going to grow and a trend that should grow,
Mm.
right? We should be taking vacations in Namibia, right? You and I should be hanging out, you know, somewhere in Morocco, right?
Mm.
Um, because when we do more of that, we're supporting our own continent to develop.
Mm.
Obviously, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to play a big role in this,
100%.
in formally creating channels that remove barriers to intra-African growth, movement, and trade,
Mm.
right? And then the third thing that I'm particularly excited about is the fact that Africa's biggest opportunity to leapfrogging and moving ahead is by tapping into its diaspora.
Mm.
There are over 190 million Africans living in the diaspora.
Wow.
Just from the United States, in 2019, $48 billion was sent in remittances to the continent,
Mm.
just from the US,
Mm.
right? There are only 2.8 million Africans who live in the US officially, right? If you think about that, what that number of people do for the continent, places like Nigeria,
Mm.
the day when we start to consider, hey, we could actually raise financing by crowdsourcing from the African diaspora.
That's
We
right.
could build bridges,
Mm.
roads, right? that's like having a corporative agenda for a whole continent.
Mm,
If Kenyans in the diaspora were building and owned the roads in Kenya, do you think people would have a problem maintaining and paying the tolls that came from their own pocket?
mm,
If we were investing in our own gold refineries or oil refineries with capital raised from our own diaspora, would we not be growing in a way that is sustainable?
mm,
Right? That's what I'm most excited about. And I guess we'll know how well that works because it's the very same agenda that we carry. This
mm.
belief that we're already doing so much.
Yeah.
Could we channel and focus this into directed engines that accelerate growth in a much more
Mm,
efficient way? We've been sending money for ages,
yeah.
but 6 million people still die in Africa every year from a lack of access to quality care. In actual
Mm,
fact, people die from poor health care, right, than they do just not having health care,
wow.
right? You take that to the billions of dollars that we send back home, and we're still spending more of that on just supporting healthcare emergencies.
Mm,
Whereas buying an insurance policy for someone, no matter how minimal, means that an insurance company is going to be paying for these benefits. The hospital is going to have a much more, um, a much better source of financing. It's going to lead to better investment in infrastructure. It's going to lead to better hiring for doctors and nurses. It's going to lead to better patient outcomes,
that's
which
right.
are actually going to lead to better outcomes for the country.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we're creating a flywheel of value, right? If we stop sending money through Western Union and paying 9 to 12% in fees, but instead started working on being able to pay school fees directly from here,
Right.
right? Maybe that will be a lot different. Could we connect what we do with our money with the value that we want from it instead of losing value throughout the chain just so people could take the cash, right? And then it goes away, right? So I think those are the things for me that I'm most excited to see in this generation of Africans, and I guess the next 10-20 years for us.
Definitely. I think you raised some great points, and I think just honing in on the value that the diaspora has, and to an extent it is untapped value. As you said, it hasn't really been channeled through designated engines that actually promote growth. So hopefully with spaces like this, with what you're doing and looking at the amazing things that people are doing across the diaspora and on the continent, through healthy connection and collaboration, we can actually push forward to see a continent that we would be ever so proud of. So we can't round up without hearing what we should be waiting for from yourself and from Fleri. So over the next 12 months, what can one expect?
I think over the next 12 months, for us, the biggest thing you can expect is greater accessibility to the products.
Good.
We're working on a really, really good partnership that is going to see us roll out products that are more affordable, um, that will reach more people
Mm-hmm.
within Ghana, and also a very big announcement that's probably going to come in next year for us. So those are some of the things we're going to see more products that cover people within Ghana and then beyond Ghana.
Amazing, amazing. I think that's very exciting. So for those that want to stay in touch with you or a part of your journey, maybe just share where they can find yourself and also information about Fleri.
So to find Fleri or discover what we do, www.joinfleri.com. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Fleri Health.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. Not very active on Instagram, but it will be at SK Baddoo. So that's S for my first name, K for my middle name, and then my last name.
Amazing. I'll be sure to link all of that below, but thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to see how much change and impact you're able to bring, as we create more awareness around what we're doing for the continent, and also really connecting the diaspora to these products.
Amazing, amazing, amazing.